Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learning. I'm honoured today to be joined by Glynis Frew. Glynis is the Training and Development Director for the Property Franchise Group. So welcome. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Very
honoured.
honoured.
Absolute pleasure. Your name has come up loads of times about having a guest, so being on as a guest. So you've got loads of raving fans out there. So
that's nice to know. Yeah.
So their wish is my command. So thank you. So how did you get into a estate agency?
Well, like everybody else, it just happened by accident, really, because I started working in 1979. So, it's a bit of a shock to me now that lots of people that I work with probably weren't even born then. So I started to work for United Biscuits. And then from there, I went to work for Pepsi. And then, giving something personal away, we were trying for IVF for a baby and we couldn't get one. So I decided that I would set up my own training business. And then we adopted 2 children from Poland because we went to live in Poland. And so we adopted two children from Poland, and I came back and I was absolutely convinced I was going to be a stay-at-home mum. And that lasted about 18 months. And then I started part-time in property with hunters. And so because of my previous skills, I just started doing a bit of HR, a bit of training. And then as the children got older and spent more time at school, I increased my hours because I started part-time. And then the rest is history. I have to say, for all the time that I've been in property, I love property. And whenever I worked for UB or, Pepsi, I'd do a job for about 2 years and then I'd think, I'm a bit bored now. What am I going to do? Find me something else. But I've never, ever felt that in property. I just love it because, there's no 2 days the same. You're dealing with the public, which can be very challenging. You've got to deliver good customer service. You've got a responsibility in estate agency because you get a lot of youngsters coming in from school that might be their first job. Estate agency is one of those places where there are no barriers. You don't have to have education so long as you can, communicate with people. And so you've got a big responsibility when you've got a young workforce as well to make sure that you're giving them the training that they need to be able to do the job.
So where's this passion for loving property come from then?
Well, I don't know. I think it must be in the family blood in lots of ways because I've got 2 brothers. As you know, you'll certainly know one of them. If you don't know both of them, they're both in property. My sister isn't. She is in software, but she's a regular scout on Rightmove, no matter what, even if she's not looking for a property. So I just think it's in the blood. It's an industry you either really like, you have a passion for, or you don't really. But I just think there's, so much to it. There is so much to the industry.
You talked about challenges. Very challenging industry. It's a roller coaster. We have amazing days and we have challenging days, to say the least.
Yeah.
Can you share how you overcome those challenges and dealing with this roller coaster every day, and what advice you can give to I suppose you call them the youngsters coming through today? Because the market's changed to a lot of people who've most probably never dealt in a market like this that you and I have experienced numerous times. So what advice would you give to them?
Well, I think first and foremost, a business, and it doesn't matter what you're in, but it's especially true of property. It's about people and it's about customer service. If you give good customer service, then they will tell other people so that, you get repeat business, but also you get the best job satisfaction because those customers will appreciate it in the end. Although you've got to remember that when they're going through that transaction, especially if it's in sales, but in lettings too, it's a tense time. So often you will see the worst in people whilst they're going through that transaction, but keep calm and give them a really good service. But it's always about people, and it's about giving good customer service.
And I'm going to come back to you on that about the good customer service. And I know you're on one of the home buyers committees.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I was having this discussion yesterday with somebody else. What I can't understand is we seem to have gone backwards with conveyancing. Days on market seem to have got a lot longer. And in fact, I was reading an article this morning where when we have a stamp duty holiday, it seemed to be that everybody could get those deals through a lot quicker. Whereas now, I've just gone through my mum's selling, which has taken 10 months. And, the stress and the uncertainty there. Why isn't anything changing? You talked about software and tech and, with your system. We've got everything that's come in. We're in the digital era, and yet it's gone backwards. I know you've most probably got lots of thoughts, and you're doing loads of great work behind the scene, and I know Kate Faulkner is as well, and loads of other people. What can be done? What can we do to? I think there's a big educating issue with the public. I don't think the public actually understand what estate agents do. Most probably mortgage brokers do. Most probably conveyancers do. Most probably surveyors. From the last bit of training and work I've done. But what do you think can be done?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think the consumer understands it very well, but you can't really expect them to, because a lot of the stakeholders within the industry don't understand it sometimes, because there are so many different changes and different demands that are coming on now. And I know that, there is a lot of criticism that's levelled at the conveyancers, but in fairness to them too, a lot of those changes are impacting on them. So they're impacting on us all. Sometimes I think there's duplication, which there doesn't need to be. For example, ID, why someone has to have their ID taken, 3 and 4 times in one transaction, is just a nonsense to me. So there's lots of ways that we can streamline those things. I think what needs to happen is, all the protagonists need to work much closer together. And I think that we have to stop this, this is my bit and don't encroach on it. Because actually, if we worked closer together and there was more transparency, then each party would help the other party, because at the end of the day, it's in everybody's interests to get this property sold. And I don't think that's happening currently. I think there's lots of plans. I think there's lots of different ideas, but it needs to come to fulfillment, and that will only happen, when either government legislates, although there are certain things that probably government could legislate, but you don't want them legislating the whole process, because in fairness, I don't think a lot of them understand it enough. But there does probably need to be some government intervention. But I think there's a lot that we could actually do ourselves as an industry to communicate from the estate agent right the way through to the lender and the remover, to make it a much more pleasant experience for the consumer. Certainly not as stressful as it is now. It's always going to be stressful, because you're starting a new life almost. So there's going to be a certain amount of tension, but it shouldn't be as stressful and as long as it is now. It shouldn't be.
I couldn't agree more. So coming back, educating the consumer.
Yeah.
So as an estate agent, what should we be doing to educate the consumer?
Well, I think as in training, lots of people learn in different ways, and I think the consumer is the same. So I think there's things that you can send in print, which could be, in newspapers or in, emails or newsletters. I think we should have videos that explain it. And I think that, that should be part of an estate agent, part of a conveyancer's ordinary working environment and working day. I think estate agents do try to do it for the most part, but they probably start most effectively when someone starts the transaction, whereas actually we all know that people are thinking about the transaction a long time before they actually do it, and so we've got to find ways to reach them before, you know, whilst they're in that thinking phase and before they start. And again, I think there's lots of different mediums that we can do that. I mean, everybody seems to watch TikTok these days, or, you know, all that kind of thing. So I think we need to be creative in that, in making sure that we're getting that message out.
Yeah, I did a series of videos with Peter Ambrose at the partnership.
Yeah.
Going through and just asking certain things, you know, what's actually a contract? What does it mean? What's a land registry? So I think we've done a series of videos just to help the consumer, just to educate people. And anybody watching it, you're very welcome to go onto the YouTube channel and take it, R&D it, do whatever you want with it, because I think it's there to help and educate and to make a difference.
Yeah.
So coming back to customer service, what I find, and I don't know whether it's just in this country or not, is that the majority of agents just see it as a one-off transaction, whereas, you know, you talked about the bigger picture, having a client for life. Again, how do we get this? You know, it's more than a one-off transaction. You know, if we give this exceptional customer experience, they're going to recommend us to friends, family, colleagues, or neighbours, and that one transaction will turn into a client for life. Why are we so transactional in this country, and what needs to change?
Well, I do think that for some, attitudes need to change, you know, in the sense that the customer isn't doing you a favour. You know, they're not phoning up, or they're not coming into your office because they can't think of anything better to do. They're coming to you to provide them a service. And, you know, we know that although we deal with this every day as an estate agent, we also know that actually it is quite stressful for other people, because to one extent or another, most of us have either been through that transaction, either as a tenant or a landlord or a vendor or a buyer, or, you know, a multiple of them all. And so I think that from that point of view, I think it's self-respect to do a good job, that you would want to do a good job for that person, because this is a people business. From a business perspective, it is always, I think, a very good thing to do to track just where your customers are coming from. And if you do that properly, you will find just how much business is coming to you from recommendation or repeat business. And that comes because your people have, you know, done well by that customer. And I also think that in order to get that instilled in a business, there has to be some kind of reward for customer service. It's got to be part of the KPIs. It's got to be part of, you know, sort of some kind of reward, as I say. That could be, you know, as the best employee for the month, you know, based on recommendations, those kinds of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be linked to any kind of big bonus scheme, but I think it needs to be repeated all the time so that everybody is on the same page, that they are absolutely committed to giving good customer service.
Brilliant, thank you. So you've obviously interviewed a lot of people, you've trained a lot of people. What are the qualities needed to be a top performer? You talked about communication, you talked about people skills. What else?
I think the other thing is that they've got to be quite driven, because if you recruiting somebody for lettings, there's a lot of small tasks that have got to be done very quickly in the correct order in order for that let to take place. I think there's about 150 different pieces of regulation before you do a let. So they've got to be very task orientated in lettings. They've got to be very task orientated too in sales, because they've got to understand that bigger picture, and they've got to understand how each bit fits in to get to the end result. So I look for people that have got a drive, and I look for people of how they manage their time and their tasks. Good people skills, like I've said before. And also I look for people that will think it through. So we were talking before about change and how that happens. Just because you've always done it this way doesn't mean to say that that's the way it's going to be. So you've got to you're looking for somebody as well that will have, a certain amount of intelligence. They don't necessarily have to have channeled that through education and through qualifications, but they do need to have the confidence to be able to say, well, I've looked at this, and why don't we do this? Or why don't we do that instead of this? Now, they can't always be right, and you're not always going to agree. But equally, change comes as much from the bottom as it does from the top. And, when I was CEO of Hunters, a lot of the things that we introduced were because the customer thought it was a good idea or the employees did. So you're looking for people like that, I believe.
Okay, so one of the things that when I was at Green and Company that we had made a massive difference and got input from our colleagues was we had a staff suggestion scheme. So every month we would pay for breakfast, take people off site and come up with suggestions. And, there'd be £5 winners, £10 winners, £15 winners. And then I think the best one got a red letter day prize every quarter.
Right.
And it was amazing what you got from your colleagues. And how good our employers are actually asking for that information.
Yeah, well, that's true, and I think that's a good the way you did it. I think there's a good way to do it. We did it different ways in the sense that, well, we like to think we'd got an open door policy so people could go and suggest anything they liked to it, any of the managers or directors or whatever. And also we had an appraisal system where people put, their 3 best ideas forward. And we always tried to review those and think, oh, well, that's a good idea. Or, well, we can't do that because it's too expensive. Nice idea, but too expensive. And we used to also have things like what we used to call moments of magic. So moments of magic, we used to do every quarter, and that was, you could nominate anybody. It was internal. You could nominate anybody, and that was for somebody who had, gone over and above what would be expected, or had put forward a great idea that we thought, oh yeah, well, we'll try that. And we used to do that. And for the moment of magic, they didn't get a red letter day like you, but they probably got a box of chocolates or a bottle of wine or something. But at least the name was in lights, so that was good.
I love that Maddox moment. I think we called ours colleague of the month. And then I think coming back, we always used to have something, mistake of a month as well.
Yeah.
And that was interesting as well. I mean, some of them mistakes, but the whole point was we want to learn from them and improve from them and get better. So that was definitely interesting. Yeah. Finding people, recruiting. How do you go and find? You're most probably your favourite subject. How do you find people? Because I know that's one of the biggest challenges for people out there.
Yeah, well, certainly it is at the moment. I think it's a really, really tough market, recruitment at the moment. And I think, everybody blames COVID for everything, but actually I do think since COVID, it has changed how people see work and what they want to do. I also think that one of the good start points is who in the organisation knows somebody that they think would be good here. and that works. And also you can remunerate them for that. And it depends what you want to do. It could be 500 quid or whatever. But you also want to do that once that person has done the probationary period, completed the 6-month probationary period or whatever it is. But I think that generally who you know and who people in the organisation know is a really good start point. And then you just have to trawl everywhere, especially at the moment. It's really hard. But in terms of third parties, I actually think there's some very, very good apprenticeship schemes and some very good apprenticeship providers who will also help you to get the best person. And of course, that doesn't mean to say that they have to be, very young to go through an apprenticeship scheme. They don't, so they can help you to get somebody. And obviously that, there's the recruiters themselves, but they tend to be a bit expensive, but sometimes you just have to do that.
Okay, brilliant. Training. Subject close to both of our hearts.
Yeah, love it.
Why do you think training and investing in your colleagues is really important?
I think that, I think every age group have always wanted to make sure that they learn. I think that is especially true these days, especially with the youngsters. They do want to see that there's something over and above just going to do a job and getting paid. They have a sort of a quest for the whole person. So I actually think that in this day and age, if you want to recruit good people, then you have to provide training of some description. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I think in order to be able to do the best job for the consumer that you are dealing with, your customers, you have to train your people to be able to do that job properly. Because it is pointless, putting them at a desk and giving them a phone and saying, there you are, get on with it. If the phone rings, answer it. That's just not the way it works. You've got to make sure that they understand what it is they're doing and what the next stages are. So I think training is crucial. I think it's always been important. But I think it pays dividends in the end on lots of different levels.
Induction. So I've had a few questions recently about what's the best way to induct new starters. So is there what do you see as an exceptional induction process?
Well, they say that 90% of what we learn on the job. And I think that's true. Having said that, I think you've got to put them in the right direction first. And these days, people learn differently and want a combination of learning. So to me, the best process is you have some training online. But you do have quite I don't know whether strict is the right word, but you do have a proper format for what that induction is about. Your managers have to absolutely understand what that induction is, because once they've done something online, and then they perhaps try it out, the manager or whoever is the line manager then has to explain, demonstrate, let them practice, give them some feedback. So they really need to know what it is they're doing and what that induction is. So for me, it's about three things. It's about online, it's about classroom, and it's about on-the-job learning and coaching.
Okay, thank you. Right, so you do a lot of work, and I know you're the chairperson of a charity for changing lives.
I am.
So do you want to share a little bit about that as well?
Well, Changing Lives is a charity that's their head office is in the northeast, and you might not have heard of the parent company, but they have lots of different projects in different areas. So they cover homelessness, and they have hostels where they actually make sure people have a home and a bed to sleep in. They have an addiction arm as well, and that's for both alcohol and drugs. There is a women in justice section, so that's about women might be in a women's refuge, but how they've been involved in the criminal justice system and their effect on the children. And then the fourth is about employment. So they have various projects nationally, and covering all those different aspects. And I have to say, when I go to the projects themselves, I am absolutely blown away with what those people do, because to say they are gifted at what they do in helping people at the most difficult time in their lives is absolutely incredible. It's incredible what they do. So yes, I do from time to time ask, some of my colleagues, will you support me? Will you support that project? Will you, go to that golf day, all those kinds of things. But it is an amazing charity, and the people in it are just incredible.
Fantastic. So a couple of final questions, because I'm conscious of your time, so thank you. What about your self-learning, your self-improvement? What do you do to continue growing every day?
Well, I read a lot. I make sure that I'm up to date with all the things that are going on in the industry. So I do that every day and I never miss. I also try to join or be part of different groups, if you like. So you mentioned home buying and selling group. That's one of them. Various groups on lettings or with conveyancers too, so that I understand the kinds of things that they're doing and what they're up against. And I also listen to a lot of suppliers, even if I think, well, I'm not really quite sure, what relevance that would have to us. You don't know. And it's not really part of my job either now, but I still do it because I think it's important to understand what is going on in the industry. So I do that. And of course, we've got all our online learning, so I keep my hand in there too.
Who inspires Glynis?
Lots of people inspire me. I love to see people or listen to people that are really good at what they do, because I know the time that it will have taken and the sacrifices they will have made to be as good as that. And so lots of people inspire me, because I look at them and I think, oh, I'd love to be able to talk like that, or understand that as well as that, or write like that, or so lots of people. I love listening to and talking to people that are really good, like you, Stephen.
Oh, that's very kind. I'm gonna make that. That's gonna be the highlight of it. I'm just gonna stop there. Thank you. If people want to get hold of you, know more about the charity, know more about the Home Buyers Committee, just know more about you, how do they get hold of you, please?
Well, I am on LinkedIn. I can give you my phone number if you want. So no problem there.
You're welcome to put it out there now if you want.
0788 182 1485. That's my phone number. So anytime.
Brilliant. Well, look, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for being a brilliant guest and sharing so much gold there. Really, really grateful. Everybody, thank you for watching and listening again. And I look forward to seeing you over the next episode. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Bye.